Sponsored by Dennis J. Courtney, M.D., Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, M.D.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to An Impact on Your Health. An Impact on Your Health, or every day our goal, is to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. An Impact on Your Health, heard each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, and I'm with you each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. An Impact on Your Health, where each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, fascinating health topics, and of course, where we do encourage you to call in to join in. Today, well, it's a post-Christmas Day version of the show. One day removed by proxy. We're here 2 days after the blessed event. I hope all went well for you and your family. I know it sure did for mine, and New Year's just around the corner. We're in that week gap of time that we coast on into our new year. Today we're going to spend some time talking about ways to combat a cold, but we're going to open it up to you today too, because you just may have something on your mind that you want to discuss. So between the two of us, you and I, we'll be able to pull this off today in a just fine fashion. Your contributions are always appreciated, so we'll look forward to having you give us a knock on the door by giving us a call at 412-825-6262. I'll explain this topic in just a bit. Plowing through the blogosphere as I have, I'm always coming up with lists, and I've picked up a few over the weekend as I was doing the same. Now, as we round out the year, it should work something like this, folks. On Wednesday and Friday, Wednesday being the 29th and Friday being the 31st, we're going to do our end of the year review show, where we just pick up the old schedule book and start flipping through the pages and taking a look to see who were those guests that we had this year. Many of them had a powerful influence on me. I hope that they were able to help you in as many ways as they could. But as I go through them, I'll continually remind myself of what I learned on those days. I'll pass it on to you. You also have a way to go through your own schedule book, because all these shows, every one of them, are in the archives, and so if I happen to trigger a name or a show or a phrase or whatever it may be, and you go, geez, I want to go listen to that show, you can mark down the date and go right to it. And, it's why we do the show this way. It's why we have the archives as we do, because every single show, and I last checked, dating back to the year 2006, is up on the website in the archives section. So on Wednesday, we're going to take the first 6 months of 2010, and the 31st being New Year's Eve, we're going to take the second 6 months and take us right up to the gong on New Year's Eve with pulling all of 2010 together. Now, as we turn the page and move to the month of January, you're going to have off the next weekend, and you're going to welcome your new year in. But when we return, which will be on the 3rd of January, Cass Ingram is going to be with us. And I'll bribe him. I'll do what I have to do to speak about his now famous book that everybody keeps asking me about. And every time I'm with him, I ask him about it. He's always interested in the woods. We'll bring him out of the woods and talk about natural cures for high blood pressure, a book he wrote quite some time ago, but the lessons learned inside of it are valuable ones. Then on the 5th, we'll have Dr. Susan Smith-Jones with us talking about stress busters, 7 of them. She puts her firm reputation behind it. On the 12th, Stuart Reeves is going to be with us. He represents the company called now Epicor. I guess there's 2 companies. The original company, the mother company, called Diamond V, a producer of animal feeds. And I think you've heard the story enough that I'm not going to repeat it now. But we've learned a lot from Mr. Reeves about the immune system and about, I guess the terms are immune balance and immune modulation as compared to what now is starting to reveal itself as a negative term, which is immune boosting. And I know it's a matter of semantics, but it goes way beyond semantics, folks, and I hope we can bring across to you how you need to take another look at this issue of what to do with the immune system, how best to accomplish it without causing you harm. Then as we move into the third week of January, Roland Thomas is going to be here with us on the 17th talking about bioengineered algae. Why would somebody want to do that? Well, turns out he thinks, and he'll probably make quite a case for it, that it's now soon to be our most powerful food and medicine, bioengineered algae. And then Brian Stark is going to be with us on the 19th. He's from Trace Mineral Research. We're going to finally give minerals a chef's due. We're going to do a number of shows on minerals in the months of January and February. And that's, just one February note I should mention. I think it's important enough that we should bring it up now. Susan Smith-Jones is going to come back on February 9th talking about natural ways to increase your libido. And she says, and I think she's right, it's just in time for Valentine's Day, if you know what I mean. Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't we take a short break? When we come back, I've got some lists I want to go through with you. It turns out that the common cold is back in the blogosphere, and lists of how to deal with it and how not to deal with it and the like. A little backdrop as to how I come to bring this new set of lists to you. And of course, you always have the opportunity to call up and knock on my door at 412-825-6262. We will be back in just a moment.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. You become confused about how best to manage your health. It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instructions, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you were looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, MD, is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Want to help your family eat healthier? Instead of learning to disguise tofu in wondrous ways, how about some real nutritional power? If your family has the typical American palate for fries, pizza, and burgers, giving your family the blessing of good nutrition is a struggle. Fruit of the Spirit is the answer for your family's nutritional needs. Fruit of the Spirit is an all-natural whole fruit puree made from fresh fruits native to the Holy Land with alkalizing minerals. Fruit of the Spirit was 5 years in the formulation, the work of a team of top nutritional experts with independent science to confirm its antioxidant power. 1 ounce a day provides the equivalent of 5 servings of fruits and minerals. Fruit of the Spirit is convenient, affordable, and delicious. Even your picky family will sing the praises of Fruit of the Spirit. Give your loved ones the blessing of good nutrition. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Fruit of the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. That's 1-800-442-3793. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AM Impact on Your Health. Here on this Monday version of the show, well, not just the usual Monday. It's the first Monday after Christmas. We're in that week between one holiday and another, you know what I mean, and usually time to wrap up a year. And, of course, the topic of the common cold keeps coming up each and every winter, and we usually handle it, well, in a number of ways. One of the ways we actually decided to do this was I looked back in my trusty book on the 22nd of November. We did a show on what was entitled, because I had come across this list, the 7 natural remedies for the common cold. You can go back and replay that show if you get a mind to. just to reinforce what they were, and then quickly, not spend much time on just echinacea was one. Another was golden seal. A third was ginseng. A fourth, and boy, I felt that we were on top of things here, nasal rinsing. I mean, this goes right along with nasal washings by Dr. Hannah, who we had on the show a couple of times. One that caught me off guard, still catches me off guard, this thing called Pelargonium sidoides. I had not heard of it before. I really still haven't heard of it now either, except in this one list. It was discussed at great length back on that show. I turned you loose and asked you to return to November 22nd show. Vitamin C, of course, was one way that I'm very comfortable with explaining how to treat the common cold. And then zinc and zinc lozenges and the like. These 7 natural cold remedies that were brought to our attention, really, and for the most part, because they were herbal in nature. They were alternatively minded in nature, and I was pretty satisfied that we had hit a pretty good list of some of them. Of course, there are so many more, and you brought to me various ideas above and beyond the list of 7. Well, in going over the blogosphere this past weekend, turns out I came across another list. As the November 22nd show could have been paraphrased as an alternative approach to treating the common cold, I found a list that is the conventional doctor list, talking about the 9 ways, well, how do they phrase it? 9 surefire ways of how to stop a cold in its tracks. Now, that's some pretty bold statements coming out of the conventional medical community. Here were some of the initial, and it was illustrative to me, initial comments about the cold itself. They say, a tickle in your throat, a cloudy head, an achy body. Yep, you're coming down with something again. The average adult, now here was news to me, the average adult gets 3 colds per year. Geez, I don't. Do you? Anyway, the average guy supposedly does, each lasting, and this is another blast of information for me, and I hope for you, each lasting an average of 9 days. Now, so says Jane Sadler, medical doctor and family practice physician at the Baylor Garland Hospital in Garland, Texas. No big deal. It's just another hospital and another doctor. But, hey, putting together a list of 9, and then there are additional doctors who support this new list. I thought it would be helpful for us to move along this list, and we're going to do so today. The first of the list of 9, actually I think there turns out to be more than 9, starts right off what I believe to be firm ground when it comes to what we know to be something that you can rely on. And the medical community agrees with this. They say staying hydrated cuts down on symptoms like a sore throat and stuffy nose, says Dr. William Schaffner, not to be confused, by the way, with Dr. William Shatner, an alternative doctor from New York City. This is Dr. Schaffner. He's professor and chair of the Department of Preventative Medicine at Vanderbilt. Anyway, fluids are what Dr. Schaffner says that you should all be trying to do, and fruit juices. Okay, number 2. Here's one that the conventional community has pretty much agreed with as being helpful. And one of the 9, and it's a little more than helpful. They use a pretty strong statement. They go 9 ways on how to stop a cold in its tracks. Okay, the number 2 way that they feel that will stop a cold in its tracks is by using a gargle with salt water to combat a scratchy throat. Add a half of a teaspoon of salt to a glass of warm water. Now, here's the explanation behind it. They say salt draws out excess water in your throat's tissues, reducing the inflammation, clearing the mucus and irritants from the back of the throat. This, so says Philip Hagen, M.D., medical editor-in-chief of the Mayo Clinic Book of Home Remedies. So this is getting a little more formal, is it not? No lesser an institution than the Mayo is weighing in. The rinse also flushes out bacteria and viruses, which may help whether you're getting a cold or want to prevent one in the first place. So that was the number 2 surefire way. Here we go with the number 3. Keep your nose clean. Well, using a saline nasal spray right after cold symptoms first appear, they say may reduce their impact. Talking about these symptoms, and studies suggest take a hot shower, warm, moist water, warm, moist air helps clear nasal patches. So says Dr. Schaffner. Once again, we've quoted him. Okay, next up. Now they say head to the drugstore. I kid you not. This is actually with the next step of the 9 surefire ways of taking care of your cold. Stopping it dead in its tracks. They tell you, head to the drugstore. Now, at the drugstore, here's what you're supposed to do. Grab a pain reliever like acetaminophen to fight off achiness. Over-the-counter allergy meds, you're supposed to be grabbing those pretty quickly too, like Zyrtec and Benadryl. Remember, this is the conventional medical way. Help with symptoms like runny nose and watery eyes. Allergy meds that contain decongestants like Claritin D or Alavert D will help clear your sinuses. Here we go with more drugs and keep you alert if you need to be, says Mark Moyad, a medical doctor and a master's degree in public health, no less, at the Jenkins Potemper, whatever that is, director of preventative and alternative medicine at the University of Michigan. So, as the number 4 surefire way to deal with a common cold, right here on the list it says jump in your car and head to a drugstore and make sure you leave with quite a few drugs to help you manage those symptoms. Here's one. It says skip, and I will notice this, that in the list of all the things you were supposed to buy, when you go to the drugstore to buy all those drugs, one thing that was never mentioned was buying OTC cough remedies. They say there's no need to do that. The good old honey works just as well and tastes better, says Harley Rodebart, a medical doctor, professor, and vice chairman of pediatrics and pediatric infectious diseases at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. And these are very prestigious institutions, and I'm sure the doctors involved are equally as prestigious. Have 1 or 2 teaspoons straight from the jar or stirred in tea, and forget the zinc lozenges and sprays. They're just not conclusively proven that they work, Dr. Rockbar notes. All right, next up on the list. How about this one? Coming from the medical community, skip work if you can. Skip that work if you can. Your body can fight off viruses better if you're well rested. But if you have to go in, well, it's not the end of the world, so says Janet O'Mahony, a medical doctor and internal medicine physician at the Mercy Medical Center in Baltimore. Just steer clear of coworkers as best you can. This is the medical advice now. The first few days of a cold is when you're most contagious. To keep from sharing your germs, wash your hands regularly or use an alcohol-based disinfectant gel. Okay, next up. Don't forget the fluids is the caution. Keep drinking plenty of water, juice, or tea, and have some chicken soup. How about that? For lunch. Grandma's favorite cure of all. Really does ease cold symptoms, research suggests. Actually, I've read some other research. It's pretty strong on the chicken soup. Shake it off is the next surefire way, actually suggesting that you should be engaged in light exercise. They say if you're really up for a little activity, light exercise can actually boost the immune system. Dr. Sadler, who started this article out, says, but we mean light, she says. Keep your heart rate just under 100. Okay, that's a pretty good parameter to keep in mind. And now finally, last chance for germ fighting, suggesting that a healthy diet can help fuel the immune system. So choose a A dinner that includes protein-packed foods like lean meat, fish, or beans, with a whole grain side like brown rice and plenty of antioxidant-rich vegetables. Take a hot shower before bed. If you're still feeling stuffy, then get a good night's sleep. These are the 9 surefire ways, they say, to stop the cold in its tracks from the conventional medical community itself. What do you think of those 9 surefire ways? I know you can take a few of them with a grain of salt. I pass them on to you because I enjoy immensely coming across lists, and I'm always coming across. Let's do this. Take a short break. When we return, some myths, talking about the common cold again, waiting for you to give us a knock on the door too to find out what's on your mind. There's a whole bunch of stuff we were talking about last week that may be of interest, something like the cholesterol conundrum. Do you remember that? How about closet diabetes? And how about the issue on vitamin C being non-corn derived? Oh, those are meaty issues. Come on back in a minute with me. We'll see you then. Be back in a moment.
Want to help your family eat healthier? Instead of learning to disguise tofu in wondrous ways, how about some real nutritional power? If your family has the typical American palate for fries, pizza, and burgers, giving your family the blessing of good nutrition is a struggle. Fruit of the Spirit is the answer for your family's nutritional needs. Fruit of the Spirit is an all-natural, whole fruit puree made from fresh fruits native to the Holy Land with alkalizing minerals. Fruit of the Spirit was 5 years in the formulation, the work of a team of top nutritional experts with independent science to confirm its antioxidant power. 1 ounce a day provides the equivalent of 5 servings of fruits and minerals. Fruit of the Spirit is convenient, affordable, and delicious. Even your picky family will sing the praises of Fruit of the Spirit. Give your loved ones the blessing of good nutrition. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Fruit of the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. That's 1-800-442-3793. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. Have you become confused about how best to manage your health? It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instructions, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you are looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, MD, is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AIM Impact on Your Health here on this Monday morning version of our show. We're a couple of days after Christmas. We're waiting to bring you on into New Year's, and we're setting the tone to allow you to come and participate with us today. We're saying, hey, look, whatever on your mind, if you'd like to give us a call to find out what that may be so we can all learn from it, even if it's in the form of a question or a comment, any one of those two will do. 412-825-6262. That's 412-825-6262. Now, as I keep on saying, I'm sort of a sucker for these lists. I keep coming across lists, and every time I find a list, it sort of catches my attention. Well, in keeping with working on this issue of the common cold, there was another list talking about the myths of the common cold, starting out with what necessarily is not a myth. They say there are 5 myths that they wanted to expose in this particular list. The first one, they never really completely got out of the way in terms of making it a myth. I don't believe it is a myth. In fact, everything I've been able to read always seems to suggest that bowl of chicken soup. And can a bowl of chicken soup help fight a cold? Well, maybe. Some researchers suggest it could relieve inflammation and yada, 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 and so on and so forth. But now, to find out about the real myths that are associated with the common cold, let's take some that I think you've heard as I have heard. The first one, how about this one? Feed a cold, starve a fever. I've heard the term, haven't you? Being sick often kills your appetite. Force feeding won't help. What will help is staying hydrated and getting enough calories. A 2008 study, here we go. See, we got studies now, folks. A 2008 study in the Journal of Nutrition found that mice exposed to the flu took longer to recover and were more likely to suffer ill effects if they were on a low-calorie diet. The researchers recommend skip dieting until after flu season. So what they're saying is, don't eat too much, don't eat too little, eat just right, and don't ever diet during a cold. If that blows the myth for you, then so be it. Let's take another one. Next myth. You'll get sick if you don't wear a coat. Oh my goodness gracious, how many times have I had that said to me as a child, and that I still say to my children as a parent? Well, here's the straight and skinny on that myth. George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life earned a punch in the nose over this one when he talked about having one of his children put on a coat. Colds and flu are caused by viruses. They do circulate during cold weather seasons, but you're more likely to pick them up inside rather than out. In fact, going outside and getting more physical activity, and not just during cold and flu season, may help prevent the sickness. So get them outside, mom and dads, without the coat on a day like today. Actually turns out to be helping them, not hurting the little lovelies. And so I'll remember that as I go home today. Next myth, wait for it to come up. Come on, here we go. Next myth. Oh, I never heard of this one too. Vicks Vapo Rub in your socks cures coughs. Now remember, they are labeled as 5 myths. So in 2007, a widely circulated email recommended putting Vicks Vapo Rub on children's feet at night and covering them with socks to cure coughs. It became an internet sensation, so says this little email that I got today. The email identified the source as the miracle cure as the Canadian Research Council, which prompted the National Research Council of Canada to issue a statement saying it had nothing to do with it. It's a complete myth. We have nothing to do with it, with the email or its advice. Vapor rub, which is usually applied to a child's chest or throat, releases vapors that are intended to relieve cough symptoms when inhaled. So it seems far-fetched that it would work if it's in your socks. Still, some fans stand by this unorthodox treatment, but it has been labeled a myth by the expert. The next one, a wet head can make you very sick. I've heard it a lot. As I grew up, I'm sure you have passed it on too. A wet head can make you sick. Well, let's see here. You'll probably feel chilly if you skip the blow dry on a cold day, but not much else will happen. Again, colds are caused by a virus. Unless you are so cold that you get hypothermia, which can make you susceptible to an infection, wet hair or clothes won't increase your vulnerability. The final myth, wearing garlic prevents a cold. Boy, this sounds a little bit like the Count Dracula stuff. Actually, the full explanation of this wearing garlic prevents colds The pungent odor may keep germ-spreading friends and co-workers away, but you'll have to actually ingest it for health benefits. For the health benefits, garlic is rich in antioxidants, which boost immunity, fight inflammation. Experts recommend adding 1 or 2 cloves a day to your diet. A small enough amount that shouldn't cause gas or acid reflux. If you're worried about the smell, try a garlic extract capsule to get the benefits without the stink associated with it. So says the medical community on 5 medical myths of the common cold, which just about brings this one to its conclusion for the year 2010. We talked about the natural remedies, now today about the conventional surefire ways to stop a cold, and even the myths. You have had your exposure this year to the sets of facts or fictions regarding the common cold, and it is time to put them to bed. All right. I'm going to take another short break. So just to reset the slate, bring it back, have a clean slate. Going to talk about vitamin D when we return because it turns out that other doctors have weighed in on what the Institute of Medicine tried to ram down our throats last week when they gave us the new criteria for taking vitamin D. It didn't sit well with me when I read it to you. It didn't sit well with a whole bunch of other people who are now weighing in on it. We'll talk more about it on return. Vitamin D, how much do you take? How long do you take it? And what goal are you trying to achieve? Be back in a moment with the answers.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. You become confused about how best to manage your health. It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instruction, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you were looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, MD, is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Want to help your family eat healthier? Instead of learning to disguise tofu in wondrous ways, how about some real nutritional power? If your family has the typical American palate for fries, pizza, and burgers, giving your family the blessing of good nutrition is a struggle. Fruit of the Spirit is the answer for your family's nutritional needs. Fruit of the Spirit is an all-natural whole fruit puree made from fresh fruits native to the Holy Land with alkalizing minerals. Fruit of the Spirit was 5 years in the formulation, the work of a team of top nutritional experts with independent science to confirm its antioxidant power. 1 ounce a day provides the equivalent of 5 servings of fruits and minerals. Fruit of the Spirit is convenient, affordable, and delicious. Even your picky family will sing the praises of Fruit of the Spirit. Give your loved ones the blessing of good nutrition. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Fruit of the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. That's 1-800-442-3793. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AIM Impact on Your Health. Here on this Monday morning post-Christmas, 2 days later version of the show. We're here today letting you come on in and call up if you'd like to and give us a piece of your mind in the form of a question or comment. Anyone will do. 412-825-6262 is the number to do that. That's 412-825-6262. Now, moving away from the list and moving into what I consider little meatier issues. The issue of vitamin D, there's no such greater, meatier an issue than the vitamin D subject. So many years have been swept under the rug, and it looks as though that the conventional medical community is losing its chance to show that it really does have the courage to be bold about how to deal with a vitamin or a mineral or an herb. Turns out a few weeks ago, the Institute of Medicine, this I don't know who they really are. I don't know the names of anybody who's on the who's in the Institute of Medicine. But a couple of weeks ago, and I brought you the information that they published last week. A few weeks ago, the Institute of Medicine surprised many of us when it announced its new Dietary Reference Intake, DRI. The new set of letters, there were daily minimum requirements, there were percentage of total diet intake. There have been so many ways to describe how much of a substance should be taken. This new one now is entitled Dietary Reference Intake, DRI. You'll be seeing it appear on a lot of the labels now as the new jargon. The consensus of the scientific community was that their previous DRI of 400 international units was insufficient, and boy, was that ever the case. And that the supplementation with at least 1,000 units of vitamin D would be necessary for most people to achieve vitamin D sufficiency. Now, these numbers, every one of them, is just, it's an insult. It is a joke. It brings a smile to my face. But even at that, with the conventional medical community trying to settle on 1,000 units a day as what would be necessary to prevent deficiencies, the IOM even disagreed with that, the Institute of Medicine. The IOM's new recommendations called for, here we go, not 400, but 600 international units per day for children and adults under the age of 70. Formerly, 400 international units for adults over age 70, and the new recommendation is now 800. You see how bold they're getting at the Institute of Medicine. And the tolerable upper limits, and at least this is the point that I brought to you last week, the tolerable upper limits, which is the amount not to be exceeded in one day. The International, or the Institute of Medicine raised that to 4,000 international units from its previously published level of 2,000 international units. Now, I don't want to confuse you, but here's probably the reason why we're getting such a problem with the Institute, and that is their definition of vitamin D sufficiency is a 25 OHD3 of 20 nanograms per milliliter. And if you know that, then you know why these poor people are working under a false premise that's never going to allow them to come to grips with the real issues of vitamin D. Because 20 nanograms per milliliter is understood by everybody else in medicine, it seems, other than them, that the normal level begins at, doesn't end at, begins at 34 nanograms per milliliter. So if you're only trying to get a level of 20 nanograms per milliliter as your goal, you literally would have to back off of your vitamin D to an amount of 600 units a day in order to be able to literally keep your vitamin D level suppressed to these subnormal levels. 34 nanograms per milliliter is where the levels begin, but they should not stop there. What is at least now believed to be the new approach, and we can forget about this group called the Institute of Medicine. I don't know any of the gentlemen or ladies on that committee, but they always come in to seem to do an inferior job, and I mean inferior, when it comes to anything I've ever read from them. They always are off the mark, and they're usually off the mark by a whole bunch. So let's just forget about the Institute of Medicine right now and talk about vitamin D with the perspective of the now new optimal range that you need to get to, that you've heard me say, and I'll mention it again because right now is the appropriate time to do it, measuring the vitamin D levels of as many as I have over the last year. And 2010 was the hot year for vitamin D. I only have 11 patients out of literally hundreds who had a vitamin D level that was 34 nanograms per milliliter or higher. The rest of them were in the 20s or the upper teens. And many of them didn't really take any vitamin D supplementation at all when we first tested them. Those 11 who were over the level of 34 were asked by me, hey, what do you do special? You were special enough that you 11 at least hit the magic milestone of 34, so what have you been doing? And in every single case, I was told by these patients that, look, oh no, I supplement. I take vitamin D. I take it every day. I've been doing so for greater than a year, usually it had been at least a year, that my level of taking this daily is somewhere, and the number then varied, somewhere between 5,000 a day and 10,000 units a day for that amount of time. Now, in any case, it did show that for a Pittsburgher, someone who lives this far north, to even approach a normal level for vitamin D, it really cannot be done by any sun exposure means, because vitamin D, being considered as the sunshine vitamin, can be tremendously increased with direct sunlight exposure. Now, I do underline that word direct, because in the northern hemisphere, anywhere above the 34th parallel, which they claim is somewhere around the level of Atlanta, Georgia, and you would all admit and agree that we are far further north of Atlanta, Georgia, and of this 34th parallel than we care to admit. And so, because of the meteorological and the geological phenomenon of the seasons, when we reach the winter, the Earth tilts to such a level that you can't get any direct sunlight. When the Earth is tilted, it hits the atmosphere and then it bends to reach us here on the surface, here in the Pittsburgh area, and even forget about it if you're further north than us. And so, even if you had a mind to, and even if you felt that you could go out in weather like this and get direct sunlight, you are not getting direct sunlight. The only direct sunlight exposure you can get are between the months of May and, well, we're going to say May and September. And those are the only times when you really could get enough vitamin D stimulation from the direct sunlight of the sun. Now, that doesn't mean that we can forget about it. That doesn't mean that we can just be consigned to the fact that our vitamin D levels are going to be low. In fact, we can't do that. Vitamin D levels have now been associated, and vitamin D in particular has been associated with literally every disease process you can name, to such an extent that when elevated levels of vitamin D are achieved, the incidence of every one of these diseases decreases, and decreases considerably. So it's no longer just a good idea to supplement in a haphazard fashion with vitamin D. It becomes very appropriate to be very proactive and supplement with sufficient vitamin D levels to reach a goal. And the goal should not be, well, for sure it should not be 20 nanograms per milliliter. It more than likely at least needs to be 34 nanograms per milliliter, but the optimal level of vitamin D is well upwards of between 80 nanograms per milliliter and 100 nanograms per milliliter. That's where we need to get you. Now, how is it that they come up with this level? How do we know that this should be the optimal vitamin D level? And the best way I've had it explained to me in my reading is by the evaluation of Polynesian males who, as a culture, live in the sun all day, every day. They are scantily clothed, many times not even wear a t-shirt. They're exposed to the sun all day, every day. And number one, they have no incidence, and this is interesting, they have no incidence on the islands of any malignant melanomas. This is the dastardly medical phenomenon that has every one of us scared to death. Our dermatology community is screaming from the rafters, keep away from the sun, when in fact it's not the sun that causes the malignant melanomas, which I believe exposure to sunlight can cause, but only because your vitamin D level is so doggone low, you've lost your protection against it. In those areas of the world, and in particular the Polynesian islands, where the vitamin D levels of those who are indigenous to those islands usually is in the 80 to 90 nanogram per milliliter range, there is no incidence of malignant melanoma on the island. One can only conclude that it's the vitamin D level of that magnitude that protects them. It is a protective mechanism against such lesions. And as protective as that high of a level can be with something like malignant melanoma, it's equally as protective with all those other diseases that I was talking about, where the vitamin D level, when compared with the incidence of a disease, has a direct relationship, meaning the lower the vitamin D level, the more prevalent the disease. The higher the vitamin D level, the less likely the disease, no matter what disease you name. So this vitamin D got a bad rap very early on in the medical world. It did so, I believe, probably and exclusively on the fact that it is a fat-soluble vitamin. As you would well know, there are 4 fat-soluble vitamins. They are vitamins A, D, E, and K. And because of the vitamin A toxicity issue, which I agree is a definite medical issue, and it is a level that has to be very carefully checked and continually monitored whenever vitamin D is administered, because it is easy, and I mean easy, to become toxic from vitamin A. And it's because of the vitamin A scare that I believe the medical community has become as squeamish about the other fat-soluble vitamins, and why we can't seem to get them off of the 400 all the way up to, to go from 400 units to 600 units a day as the recommendation just points out how squeamish the conventional medical community, in particular this Institute of Medicine, whoever they are, these people are scared to death about the toxicity of vitamin D when they need to be looking at the benefits of vitamin D, and they're just not. And so it's because of the fear of a fat-soluble vitamin accumulating to toxic levels easily, and I venture to say that it's virtually impossible to become toxic with vitamin D. After all, the folks out there in the Polynesian islands who carry levels of 80 to 90 and up even of vitamin D aren't dropping like flies in the sunlight down on those islands from any toxicity issues at all. And so you shouldn't be fearful of it either. You should, number one, get a vitamin D level from your physician. Come on in. We get the vitamin D level on everybody who comes to my office to find out where you are. And if you are a Pittsburgher born and raised, and you haven't been supplementing in any way with vitamin D, I'm going to tell you that you are not going to be normal, and you'll more than likely be in the teens, 18, 17, 15. These are common numbers seen by me when we've done the initial workups and obtain a 25-OHD3 level. I guess that's the next point to make. Whenever you ask your doctor to order a vitamin D level, don't allow him to write vitamin D level on the prescription pad. He won't know, but you need to know that there are 5 forms of vitamin D, and that unless you specify which one of the vitamin Ds you want, you more than likely are going to be in a crapshoot and not get the level that's really going to be indicative of your 25-OHD3, because what the lab tech will do is see that their vitamin D level has been ordered. They will go to their manual, their book, and whatever the first one of the vitamin Ds listed there are, that's the one that's going to get ordered. And it might or it may not be the 25-OHD3. So the only vitamin D level that we're interested in is 25-OHD3, which is not, by the way, the active form of the vitamin. The active form of the vitamin is 25-dihydroxycholecalciferol, and I know it's a mouthful, but the half-life of that substance is literally measured in minutes. And it doesn't make practical sense to order the 25-dihydroxy form, and because it just isn't going to be able to register. But the 25-OHD3 level hangs around for months, and that's why it's the better measure, and that's why you need to ask your doctor for that level so you can find out where you start, because you're going to have to continue to follow these levels, working to an ultimate level of somewhere between 80 and 100 nanograms per milliliter. If you do it on your own orally, taking somewhere between 5 and 10,000 a day, and usually 10,000 units a day is the appropriate amount to take, it will take you approximately, in my practice here, at least I've come to learn, about a year of taking 10,000 units a day to be able to allow your vitamin D level to rise to levels of 80 and above. And so if you have the time, and certainly most of you do, it's a perfectly acceptable way. You have to take 10,000 units a day for about a year to do it. If you don't have the time, and I mean there may be a current illness that you're working through, maybe because of your age you don't want to take the full year to be able to get to normal levels of vitamin D, then there's also an injectable way to proceed, whereby the protocol in this office goes something like this. You get 200,000 units injected intramuscularly into one hip. 3 weeks later, you get another 200,000 injected in the opposite hip. That's a total of 400,000 units. And 3 weeks after that, you repeat the vitamin D level. And you do it for this reason. The literature suggests that for every 400,000 units of vitamin D that you consume or that you take in, your overall 25-OHD3 level should rise around 10 points. So let's say you started at 20 nanograms per milliliter, the so-called and absurd normal level that the Institute of Medicine has been working with. Well, if you came back and you got 400,000 total, 200 plus the 200, and you had risen to a level of 30 nanograms per milliliter with that 400,000 units, then that would mean that you would need, check this out, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 60 to 70, 70 to 80. 5 more injections of 400,000 apiece, spaced out about once every 3 weeks. And in that way, you would be able to, and you will arrive, by the way, at your normal level of 80 nanograms per milliliter plus, and it would take about 2 to 3 months to do it. So, you can pick how it is that you want to attain this, but I think it's a laudable health goal for everybody listening to this show, listening to this station, to want to get their vitamin D level to optimal ranges and do it either the easy way, meaning you take a daily amount, about 10,000 a day, or do it the hard way, where we can inject and get you up there pretty quick, but you need to arrive at 80,000, at a level of 80 nanograms per milliliter before you can coast and get all the benefit from vitamin D with no drawback. I find no drawback. I can't find one. And I've looked high and low, and I cannot find a problem developed from anybody with a vitamin D level of 80 nanograms per milliliter. I just can't find it. And I've now been working with this long enough that I think I can make some generalized statements. I've just made all the statements that I think that need to be made so that you can appreciate what the real information on vitamin D is, no matter what the Institute of Medicine says. I've been across with this institute before, I mentioned the other day that this was the same institute about 6 or 7 years ago, after the use of mammograms was being assaulted by the medical community in various forms of research. Now, admittedly, this research was being done in the Scandinavian countries, and I don't know what they do over there and why they have so much time, but there was a time back in about 7 years ago where a flurry of articles and research was coming out of the Scandinavian community, one after another, each showing the mammogram as the worthless tool that it really has become, known by me as, but with research to back it up. And there was such a flurry of these research articles 7 years ago, each and every one of which was really showing how the mammogram wasn't really helpful, and it certainly was deleterious and had harm. And so I felt that what I was witnessing at the time was truly that mammograms are going to be booted right out the door. And they really were on their way out. I was feeling really good about those Scandinavian research articles until, lo and behold, some group called the Institute of Medicine published, and it's a federal agency, by the way. This is a federal group. Back then, they published an article, just one, and said, we have noted the onslaught of literature coming out of the Scandinavian countries, implicating the mammogram as a negative force in medicine. We, however, will feel that we'll continue to use the same criteria and protocol for mammograms no matter what the Scandinavian countries said, and that was the end of the issue. Hey, hope you enjoyed our show today. Hope you learned a little something. I know I enjoyed speaking to you about many of them. Why don't you enjoy us on Wednesday when we start our year in review. Until then, hope you have a wonderful day today, and tomorrow, see you on Wednesday. This is Dr. Dennis Courtney saying so long for AM Impact on Your Health.
Sponsored by Dennis J. Courtney, MD, Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information